Hi there, thank you for checking out my Maya introduction video. In this video I'll show a detailed overview of all the UI elements in Maya. This should give you a good foundation and solid understanding of how Maya works, how to use basic tools and what settings to pay attention to, and also how to troubleshoot some common issues that you might face. This is the only first video in the series and there will be many more. The first thing, if you open Maya first time, you'll see this home screen. It's basically just very simple way to navigate through your projects. So all the projects you create will be shown here, and you can create new project, you can open projects from somewhere else. You can set up default folder for your current project, which you can also do later on. So I'll skip it for now. And there is some official Autodesk learning resources you can check if you'd like to. For now, I will just untick show home screen on startup and I will click new project. Okay, so let's look through user interface. The first thing I want you to notice is that you have different workspaces here on the top right corner. You see it says workspace general, and if you look through it and you try to click on different choose different presets, and you see user interface will change a lot. And this is basically just layouts, like presets for different purposes. Like if you do animation, this is Autodesk default layout for animation. If you do, or if you want to create UV, for example, then this one would work better for using UV tools because you need two windows and so on. Something you need to be aware of is that Maya is very customizable, and you can create your own custom layout, or you can pick any one you like, and then you can customize it and create your own custom layout, and you can even save it and use it for any purpose. And one of the way to do it, if you look around, you'll see that all the little panels here have this dotted area. So if you click and drag, you can undock any panel like that, or if it doesn't have it, it has a name. If you click and drag on the name, it would basically do the same. If you click place it somewhere else, you have a highlighted line indicating that this is the area where you can dock. And this is and this gives you this option to dock any panel or shelf or UV element anywhere you want. The other thing that could be useful to know is that if you accidentally break your user interface layout and you just want it to be exactly like it was before, you go to workspace and click choose reset current workspace. Ta-da! See, now we have everything back to its right places, and this is very useful because sometimes you can just accidentally click and drag something and you will understand what happened. So this is the way to get default user interface the way it should be. All the panels, you have an option to temporarily hide them. If you click on the name of the panel with left mouse button just once, it'll hide it. And if you click again, you will unhide it. This is true for any panel you can see. So something to be aware of is that if you click Ctrl M, your menu will disappear. And it's a very strange thing to have because it's very confusing when it happens and you don't know why. You just accidentally clicked it. Ctrl M would hide and show your main menus. Okay, so now let's look to the top of our user interface, and you'll see there is a line of menus. It's called main menus, and it looks very similar to any other software, except of in Maya, you have different presets of different menus depending on what you do. What does it mean? Let me show you. Basically, you have the first 5 menus that is always here. You will see them all the time, no matter what you do. And the rest will change depending on the presets you choose here. So if it's modeling, if it's rigging, if it's animation, if it's effects. See, they're all slightly different. So if you follow a tutorial and they say, oh yeah, go into enclose and do something here, but you don't see enclose in your menu, it's because you have different preset, which is say in modeling, and you just need to go through it and find the ones that works. And the other way to do it, and this is very common thing for Maya, there is always multiple ways to do the same action or find the same tool, and lots of things in Maya, it's actually duplicating the same tool or command again and again and again. Let me show you. If you go to your viewport area and click and hold spacebar, you'll see those are all the menus you already seen on the top. Only they don't have separation into different sets, so you can see all of them at once. There's our enclose menu. So the way marking menu works in Maya is slightly different than some other software. So, for example, to get access to all of these menu items through marking menu, you need to click and hold spacebar, and while you're still holding it, you go and find the menu you need. Like, for example, if I want to go into file, again, I will click and hold with left mouse button, and then I will choose the right ones that I need. But I'm still holding my left mouse button. So when I release it, I will get access to that menu I actually need. And now let's look at all the other UI elements in Maya. Something I forgot to mention, when you every menu you see on the top again has this little dotted area. If you click on it, you'll basically separate the menu like temporary for your own convenience, and when you close it, nothing happens. It still will be there, so it's just a way to again duplicate it rather than anything else and have it open for some time. So let me go to Windows, UI elements, and separate this set. Okay, so this is all the main UI elements in Maya. Let's start with status line, the top one. We already know what modeling means and how you can find different presets for different main menus. Let's look through the rest of the icons here. And the first thing I want you to notice is that there is little like separator icons here. They often can be closed if you click on it. You see, it can hide a next set of icons. The icon itself will change, so you have a little triangle here, so you click again and you unhide it. This is something you need to be aware, because again, when you follow tutorial, like accidentally if you click somewhere and you hide half of your user interface and then you can't find where it is, and this is something to check. Okay, so the first set of icons, they're just basic icons like you have in any other software, like open file, save file, create file, undo, redo. So all of them you can find if you go to file, and there will be save scene, open scene, and so on. The next one would be our different ways of selecting objects in Maya. This is a little bit more complex, and if you're already familiar with other 3D softwares, you will pick it up very easy. I have just created 3 cubes and a NURBS circle object. I did it just to show you better how these different selection types works in Maya. Something to be aware of is that, again, sorry for repeating myself, there are different ways to access the same tools in Maya or like commands, and this is not the most efficient one, but when you start learning a new software, I think it's quite useful just to know where to find these things in user interface before you start using hotkeys or marking menus. So let's quickly look through them, all of them. So the first three, it represents the ways of selecting anything in Maya. It could be an object, it could be a component, and it could be a hierarchy, which is like a group. So if I have it highlighted as an object, then I can select separately different objects. If I have a component, then I can select different components within an object. If I select this icon, which by hierarchy, then when I click on any of these three objects, it will select the whole group, which would be highlighted in our outliner. Outliner, it's another big topic, probably for the next video. Depends on which of icon you choose, you have slightly different options. If you go with the components, for example, you can select vertices, you can select faces, you can select edges, and so on. Let's go back to object selection, and you'll see there is different components you can select. By default, all of them are highlighted, means like may allow you to select anything you want, or all different types of geometry. You can also go there in the little arrow and see that you can switch all objects off. Now I can select anything. If you have a problem that for some reason you can select objects in Maya, the first thing you can check is to look at these little icons and see if you have all of them highlighted. The reason it can be useful in Maya, for example, I have this NURBS geometry hiding behind the cube. One of the way I can select it very quickly is by deactivating selection for Polygon geometry, which represented by this icon. So if I switch it off, I can select any of the cubes, but I will immediately select my NURBS geometry, which before that was slightly harder to select. And the last two icons in the selection modes, I don't use them very often. This one would allow me to lock selection and not be able to select anything else. Like, it can be useful when I need to move my, geometry a little bit, and like I'm trying to select this arrow and instead accidentally selecting the wrong geometry. So I can lock selection, and now no matter where I click, I will only move the my current active object. And this one works similar with in the component mode when you need to select some of the components, lock selection so it won't switch to object mode. I don't actually find it very useful, so I never use it. I'm not even 100% understand how it's supposed to work. The next set of icons is this one. This is snapping. When I move object, I can just move it anywhere I want within the 3D space. There is different ways to move it more precisely, depending on what you want to do. And this is again something you can access within marking menus and hotkeys. So it's not necessary you will actually use these icons, but it's just good to know why they are here and what they do. So for example, the first one would be snapping to the grid. And when it's active and you move your geometry around, it will always snap to this little grid points. And the next one is snap the curve. I had to create a curve. So like right now I move it and it doesn't have any restrictions. And now if I click snap the curve, and I think the first time, yeah, I need to move it close to the curve first time, and now you see it just basically snap into the curve. Snap to points that would refer to vertices in other geometries. So you see I'm moving it around and it's always snapping to points. Snap to project center would basically snap to little center. So if you think about, every object would have a center somewhere in the middle. This is where it's going to snap. Also, as you see, you can have multiple snapping options on and off. View planes, well, something that I don't really use very often. I think it's for references images, when you have reference images. This one could be very useful. It's a snapping to live object. For example, if I click, if I choose that object to be live, I'll have to select it and click this icon. Now I can select it again, but also this object became live, and everything you move around will snap to it no matter what it is. Like, you see, it's a curve. This is the other curve. This is the other. Every time you try to move it, the first thing you will do is just snap to the closest point in that direction you move it. To deactivate it, you just need to click on this icon again, and you have the previously live objects back, so you can select it, and anything else you can take apart. This is a good little window showing you that there is no live surface, or when you create a live surface, you will have the name of the object here highlighted, that this is the current live object. The next one is Symmetry. It's for moving things around in a symmetrical way. If you have a symmetrical object, then you can move and manipulate different areas of object on both sides. Like, for example, this would be object Z. So if I move this H, it will move the other H just the same way. There's different ways to work symmetry. It could be object space or world space, and this is something I'm going to explain better later on. But for now, it's just good to know what this is for and how it works. Okay, so next set of icons, it's history and quick access to construction nodes. In Maya, everything you create would create a node somewhere, and when this icon highlighted, it means like you keep construction history on. For example, if you remember my cube, I just added bevel to it. When I select it, I can go there and get quick access to that poly bevel I created, so I can keep adjusting it. I can also find the same poly bevel in my attribute editor. There will be poly bevel 1. And the reason I still can access to poly bevel is because I keep my history, but as soon as I delete the history, which I can do edit, delete by type history. So when I do that, it literally erases all the history of different commands I've been using. I won't be able to go back and change anything. And this is why it's useful to have this construction history on, but also history, it's something you need to clean from time to time, because sometimes you can get errors. Eventually it might cause some issues. Let's continue and check the next set. So those icons All of them represent different aspects of rendering. For example, render settings, where you can set up all the settings you need to render anything. Hypershade, it's for setting up materials. So also have a lighting editor where you will see all your lights, and an actual render that just black right now because I don't have any lights or any geometry. And the last one, it's it's just like a quick way to input anything. For example, if I have don't know, cylinder and I want to rotate it on a 90 degree, I can try to do it here. I personally never use it because we also have a attribute editor and a channel box where it's just easier to do. It's also here, and if you click on this little button, you can see there is different options, like you can quickly rename geometry. So yeah, it could be useful, but I personally never use it. The last set of icons, this at the very end, they just like panels with all of them represent different menu or different tool. The first one, it's modeling toolkit. It's like a menu that combine quite a lot of very useful modeling tools or commands. The next one, it's for character rigging, or when you do animation, you probably wouldn't need it for some time. This one is attribute editor, and a channel box. They're very similar, and I will talk about them a bit later. The easy way to switch between them would be Control A. So I can open attribute editor or channel box. And this last one in the middle that I missed, it's tool settings. In Maya, you always have something selected, some tool. Like this is selection tool, this is move tool, this is rotation tool, and all the different tools would have different settings. And tool settings, this is the place to adjust how your tool works. I can close it, and I can always find it here. Also, there is a good hotkey for it. Is it Command Shift and right mouse button, and you will get access to most useful settings within your tool. For example, I can select that object, for example, choose Move tool, and I want to change from object to world orientation for my pivot. I will click Command Shift right mouse button and choose world here, for example, or I can do the same from axis orientation, and I can choose here back to object. So Command Shift right mouse button would give you access to all the settings you have in this little menu. The next menu we'll look at is called Shelf. It's underneath status line, and literally it's just like a shelf where you can put your favorite tools or commands. None of them actually unique tools. Every item you see on the shelf you can find somewhere in main menu. So those are just duplicates from a main menu. It's a very easy way to access them, and even more, you can create your own custom shelf, or you can customize any of those shelves that you have as a default. For example, if I go and click on this custom shelf in the middle, and I don't know, I want to put something like combine, and hold Command Shift and click on combine, and you'll see you get little icons here. It means that you don't need to go to mesh and combine anymore. you can just access it from your custom shelf. If you choose any of the shelves, like for example polymodeling, and you want to rearrange things, you can use middle mouse button and you can click and drag and make these little adjustments. If you want to delete something that you don't need, if I go back to my custom shelf and I want to delete that, I can click right mouse button and choose delete. Also, there is a little icon here. If you click on it, you can go to shelf editor, where you can rename shelves, change little icon previews, or move things around any way you want. It's up to you. I personally like to use custom shelf, and on my previous version of Maya, I had like a big line of all the most useful commands. So I would never need to go to menu to find them, because I would just have all of them here. Also, if you are like me and you'll end up using just one custom shelf, you can do the other thing you can do, you can switch shelf tabs off. It will give you a little bit more space, and if you want to change it, you can just change it from this little icon. Like, I can go back to polymodeling and have just polymodeling around, or rigging. So yeah, this is the easiest way to navigate through shelves in my opinion. And when I will show you more of polymodeling techniques and tools, I'll come back to shelves. Okay, the next two panels, it's a time slider and range slider. Both of them are used for animation, and I think I'm not going to talk about them that much in this video. I might come back to them later on in future videos. So this is range slider and this is command line. Oh, sorry, this is time slider and this is range slider. Next one is command line. If you use Mel or Python, you might find it useful to use this base for your custom code. I don't know anything about programming and I never use it, but I know lots of people find it useful to write commands. This one is good because this one would show you the result of anything you do in Maya, as well as errors or warnings. You should keep an eye on it, especially if something doesn't work the way you want it to work. For example, if I create cube, you would give me a result, polycube 1. If I select my cube and, I don't know, create bevel, then go back to object mode, and you see there is a little icon here. So if I click on it, I will see the whole record of all the actions in Maya I have done so far. So I would say this is polybevel I created. It does not make much sense, but it makes sense when you do something specific and you need to find more information on what issues you have, as well as if you want to add custom script or custom action and put it on the shelf. This is the place where you save script to shelf. And helpline. Helpline is pretty much self-explanatory. The helpline could be useful when you use tools, and it can give you some tips of how to use them, highlight some hotkeys that might be useful, and so on. And the last one is toolbox. Toolbox, it's again, it's a panel where you have the most useful tools that you're going to use all the time. It's like selection tools, move, rotate, and scale. This one would be the last used tool. So, for example, if we go to polymodeling and choose, then I go back to selection tool, you see, it will still remember that I were using target well tool before. It can give me a quick access to the last used tools. Those icons are for our viewport, which I'm going to talk next. It's the way to separate Viewport into different layouts. Each window here, it doesn't have to be Viewport. You can customize them. Could be graph editor. It could be, well, anything from that list, like a render view. This is how different workspace worked, and by not only rearranging windows, by having these viewport windows that could be changed into, well, anything else. And let's go back and have just one panel for our main viewport. Alright, so now we know a little bit more about user UI elements in there. Let's close this window and focus on our main area, which is our viewport. First of all, let me show you the way you can navigate your camera. One of the way would be to rotate this little cube. As you can see, you can also focus. If you click on any of these arrows, you can navigate it like that, or you can click and hold and just move it around, or set it back to default. The most easy way to navigate within Viewport is by pressing Option or Alt key on the Mac and use 3 mouse buttons. Middle mouse button to pan around, left mouse button to rotate it, and right mouse button to zoom in and zoom out. If you look to the bottom, you'll notice it has your viewport has a name. It means that you are inside your perspective camera, which is this one, and you can select it. And by default, you have top, front, and side view cameras. You can even create your own camera if you go to Create, Cameras, and a new camera. And now we can see we have camera 1, and we are still looking at it from inside our perspective camera. If you click on it with the middle mouse button, click and drag to the viewport, we will get the view from that new camera we created, which is camera 1. And now using our navigation, we can move it the way we want. And now we are looking at our 3D space through that new camera we have just created. The same with other cameras, we can click and drag them with the middle mouse button. You probably noticed that that view is slightly different from our perspective view. The reason because these 3 cameras, top, front, and side, using orthographic point of view, which means you don't have any perspective. So let's go back to our perspective camera and look closely at our grid. So this is the origin of our 3D space, and it's placed at 0, 0, 0. If I create a cube and move it somewhere else, and now I'll go to channel box, and you see I have translate X, translate Y, translate Z coordinates, and if I change them all into 0, 0, 0 and click enter, it will place my cube back to where it started, which is basically our origin point. When you move your camera around, you'll see it will, by default, it will use that center point as a center of rotation. And for example, if you have a cube somewhere here and you focus on the cube, which you can do by pressing key F, and now you rotate your camera around cube. It's very convenient. There's a way to get access to that different views in your viewport would be click spacebar. Remember, if I click and hold it, I'll get access to all the main menus. But if I click and release it just like that, I will see all these different views like side view, front view, and top view. And if I want to jump to any of this view, all I need to do is just move my mouse onto the right view and click space again. One of the most important panel in our window in Maya, it's Outliner. And you can switch it on and off here. Outliner will show you all the objects you have in your scene. For example, I have camera, I have my cube, and many other nodes, connections, and everything else. Literally every object that exists in your scene you can find in Outliner. Also, there is a little window for search where you can find your objects by name or even by type. So there is something else I want to show you before we'll look closer at viewport menus and panel bar icons. So here is 2 cubes in my current scene. If I select this one and I move it far away so I won't see it anymore, and I want to select everything that I have in my scene, like I already showed you the way to focus on the object that you select. And now if I press A on my keyboard, look what happened. It will focus around all the objects I have in this current scene. Let's have a closer look now at the viewport. And actually this area called Pannel, and this is a panel menu, and this is panel bar. All those icons on a panel bar would represent something from panel menu. Just like main menu, you can also hide panel bar menu with Shift M and Shift M to show it again. And just as well as panel menus, you can also hide and show panel bar. If you press Ctrl Shift M, you see, you can hide and unhide it. And the other quite important hotkey I want to show you for our viewport is Option B. There's only 4 options for background color in Maya, and by clicking Option B, you can look through all of them. Okay, so let's have a closer look at our panel bar here. The first set of icons, it's for rendering. When you have Arnold render on, there is other options available, but I'm not going to talk about them right now. It's something we can look at when we talk about rendering. The next set of icons, it's for the camera. This one would just select a current camera, which, as we know, it's perspective camera because we can look underneath. Lock camera. If you don't want to move your camera and you want to keep the same position, you can lock it. And now I'm trying to use Option and right or left or middle mouse button and nothing happens because we just locked our camera. This is camera attributes. I will open camera settings in the attribute editor. So this one, it's bookmarks. It's very useful. Basically, you can bookmark any camera view. For example, I want to look at my cube from this angle, so I can click on it, and it looks like nothing actually happens. Then you move it, and you click again, and then, I don't know, maybe from this angle, you click again. And now, if you go to View, Bookmarks, you can find your bookmarks. So you have access to your saved cameras view by using bookmarks, and it's very handy. The other thing that is worth mention, you're probably aware that you can undo with Ctrl Z, or you can use these buttons here. For example, if I move my cube somewhere, and then I move my camera, and I click Ctrl Z, basically it will only place cube back, but not a camera. However, I can use square brackets keys on my keyboard to go back to previous camera view. So as you see, I'm just scrolling through all my camera position. right now we're looking at our cube from front position, so I will rotate it. I'll rotate it a little bit more, and I'll zoom out, and I'll move my camera. And now I can come back. I can go back and see all the previous camera views. The next one is image plane. You can create image plane if you want to use a reference picture inside Maya. This little icon, you can add like image into your viewport. Let me add something quickly. Oh yeah, that's one. As you can see, it will create, it will open your image and place it in a viewport. When I move camera, I still have the same image on. Also, you can adjust transparency, and in the placement you can also decide whether you want to fit it horizontal or vertical, or just take all the area and distort it slightly. And you can switch it on and off. And also something to be aware of is that you will only add it to one camera, so it could be useful. You can create a separate camera, place it the way you want, and maybe you have a reference you want to use that will always be shown in this camera, and you can look at it and adjust your models based on your reference. There is a way to add reference image in Maya, but I'll talk about it a little bit later. The next two icons, they for 2D view. Maya now have Blue Pencil, which is a tool you can write notes. I don't actually use them, so I don't have much to say about them. Okay, the next set of icons, it's grid, and those are for different ways to crop your camera. This one switches grid on and off. This is where you can see a frame how your camera look like if you take a render. This is the area that is going to be rendered. Also something you can set up in the settings, in the camera settings. The rest is similar. I say it's probably more useful for animation. It's like different areas where animators create animations. They use like safe area and so on. It's good to know that you can preview your render area here and that you can switch grid on and off. Okay, the next set of icons is very useful and important. In basically different ways to see your geometry. By default, you see everything in a sort of shaded way, and if you click and if you select your objects, then you see wireframe. This icon would show you wireframe without any shading. Also, you can use Hotkey 4. Hotkey 5 will go back to your default mode when you have your geometry shaded. Next one would use default material and override your current custom material. So if you want to preview all your models with the same material, you can use this one. This one is very useful, and it's wireframe on shaded. If I have multiple objects in the scene, and I'll deselect them all, you can see that I still can see wireframe. The hotkey for switching it on and off would be option 5. So if I go back to just wireframe mode and I click 5, I will get shaded view, and option 5 would show me wireframe. The next one is textured. So I actually created material and added textures on this cube. That's why you can see some textures. The next one would be lighting, and also hotkey 7, and for textured view it would be hotkey 6. Currently it's all black because we don't have any lights in the scene. When you add some lights, you'll see shading, and this one would switch on and off shadows from your lights. So let's go back to our shaded mode. This one would add ambient occlusion. It's just ambient occlusion for the viewport, so you can see your model better. The next one it's motion blur. It's for animation when you have something animated and you can switch it on and off the same way like ambient occlusion, so you could preview motion blur in a better way. This is anti-aliasing. Basically it's probably very hard to show, but yeah. Okay, if you can notice, there is little, the edge looks slightly rough, and when you have it on, it smooths the edges. If you have a powerful video card in your computer, then just keep it on, it will give you slightly nicer, smoother look. Depth of field is when you use camera. Currently it's not available because it's not enabled in your camera in attribute editor. Basically it's the same like a real life camera where you have your aperture like f2 or something like that, and you have a blurry background, and this is something you can set up in your 3D camera and have very similar effect. And when you do that, you might use this as an option to preview depth of field. Isolate select. This is a good one. You can isolate anything from in your scene. Like if I have more objects, I only want to look at this object right now, so I'll click this button, and as you see, all the other objects disappeared, but I haven't deleted them, they're still in my outliner. And also I have this new view selected set, which represent my current selection. Default my hotkey for this is Ctrl+1, and this hotkey I'm going to change later on, and I'll show you how to set up your custom hotkeys. The next three icons represent different ways to look through geometry with half shaded look. This the first one would X-ray all of the object in your scene, you see. Also you can still have wireframe on them if you use option 5. And the next one is useful when you want to select components and you want to see that you also selected them on other side of your geometry. For example, if I go to component mode, which I will explain later, and select faces, and for example I select those 3 faces and look from on my cube from this angle, and I want to see what else is selected behind it, I can click here, and you see it will make it transparent, so I can actually see what else selected on the other side. And when I go back to object mode, it just it loses the transparency. Also there is a way in Maya to add a hotkey to make X-ray view only for selected objects, and I'll show it to you a little bit later in this video. And those just for viewport, changes the contrast of your viewport, and you can just adjust the lighting in your viewport if you want to. I think this one is gamma and this one is exposure, and this is your color space for the viewport, which doesn't affect render. It's only for colors inside your viewport. So now let's do a quick overview of panel menus. The first one is view, and we already looked through quite a few things from here, like creating bookmarks. We can lock camera, we can frame selection or frame all. One of the commands that can be useful from the view menu is create camera from view. If I move my camera somewhere like that and go view, create camera from view, it will create another camera which you can see in your outliner. It will rename it so you know it's perspective 1. You can also see the name of the camera here underneath. The other thing you can do is if you want to switch from perspective view to orthographic view, you can go to View, Camera Settings, and untick Perspective Orthographic View. It will use your current camera view, change perspective into orthographic so that you can't rotate it anymore, but you still can zoom in and zoom out and pan your camera around. To undo that, you go to View, Camera Settings, and click here again. Also, if you want to find more orthographic views, at the moment we only have top, front and side view. If you want to add more orthographic views, what you can do, you can create a new camera. This is what we have just done. Then go to View, Predefine Bookmarks, and you'll see there is other options available. So, for example, I can choose bottom, and now I have orthographic view from the bottom side, which looks very similar to the one from the top. And you can rename your camera if you double click on outliner, and I can call it back. And now I have cameras that represent this view, and I can go back to my perspective camera here. Any of these panels I can change into other camera view. For example, if I go to top view, click and drag a back view here. Now it's a back view. I go back and go back to my perspective camera, and now I have a back view, front view and side view. It could be useful. You can customize your cameras and your views the way works better for you. The other way to switch quickly to orthographic view would be using your view cube, but you need to be aware that in this case it will snap to one of the views you have here. For example, even if I look on my cubes from that angle, I'll go there and click orthographic view. You see, it will show me the left. It will show me left side of the view, but it's also make it. It's also easier to rotate them around like that. And we can raise it to default view by clicking this button. There is something I forgot to mention before. Every menu whether it's the main menus or panel menus, sometimes have tools with extra settings. For example, if you go here in View, in the camera tools, you see these little icons here. This icon would represent additional settings for tool that you can check and customize the way it works better for you. For example, I'll show you how to walk around your scene. And if you click here, we'll get tool settings panel back, and you'll see all the settings that will be relevant to current tool. For example, I can click with the right or left mouse button, and I can use W, S, A, D to walk in the scene, just like in a game. So the other camera tools, I don't think they're very useful. We already know the hotkeys that can just replace all of this. For example, you don't need choose zoom tool. I mean, you can, but the easier way to do it would be to hold Option and right mouse button. Let's move to the next one, shading. We already looked through quite a lot of them, and the useful one is back face cooling. Let me show you. If I delete some of the edges, I see inside of geometry in a black color. And if I go to shading and I check back face cooling, I can see through geometry like that. So I can also switch off wireframe visibility like this. If I select my cube, I will notice that there is faces, but I won't see them if I look through inside geometry. I will only see them from outside of geometry. And the next one is lighting. You can use different lighting setup, like default lighting or your custom lighting scene. And this is something I'll talk about when I talk about rendering. The next one is show, and this is where you can decide which types of objects you want to show or hide in your viewport. Like for example, if I create a circle, this is a NURBS geometry, and I go in my show viewport and I deactivate NURBS curves. So I won't see it, although I still have it here. But even if I select it, I can't see it. It's because in a viewport, I deactivated visibility for all NURBS curves. And it could be useful with all different types of objects you have, like cameras, lights. And for example, if I deactivate visibility for polygons, I won't see any polygons. Also, if you notice, in menu, when you have a hotkey assigned to one option or command, you will see it here, and this says it's option 2. So option 2 will hide and show all the polygons. And while it can be very useful, but also it can be very confusing. If you accidentally click option 2 and you don't see, you can still select all your objects, but you don't see them, and you wouldn't know what happens. Then that's something you can check. If you go to show viewport and you see, my polygons are not visible, and this is why. And the next one is isolate select. It's something we already seen here, that you can isolate selection. There's a thing you can do if you want to add something to your selection. You can still select geometry from your outliner and go here and load selected objects. Oh, sorry, add selected objects. So if I have this object currently selected and I isolated it, and I choose another model from outliner, and I go show, isolate select, add selected objects. So now I have 2 objects in my isolate selection. I don't really use it like that. For me, it's easier to just go back to the way it was before, select these 2 objects and isolate them using hotkey. But this is the other way to do it. Also, you can bookmark your sets if you have very complex, and if you want to keep your sets of selection, isolated selections, then you can do that here too. But I never ended up using bookmarks because there is easier way to do it. Channel box, you have layers, and it's something I'll show you later. And this is similar thing when you can create different layers and place different objects and use them for the same purpose of hide and show some sets of different objects. Okay, the next one is render. It's basically switching between Arnold render and Viewport render, which we've already seen. And this is panels. This is where you can set up your viewport to change in anything else. You can create different layouts, as I showed you before, to use your viewport like in different ways. Oh, the other thing in the panels, you can look through selected object. For example, I have this cube, but I need to be in a wireframe mode to actually see through it. And I go panels and I go look through selected. And guess what? Now I'm looking at my 3D scene as if I place camera inside the cube. And you can also see it changed its name. Now it isolate P cube. And if I need to place it somewhere and somehow make it easier to to navigate, this is something I can do. There's a thing to be aware of: if when you try to go back to your perspective view, you don't have it anymore because now you have isolate pick cube 3, and you might, as you know, one of the ways to do it, it's click and drag your perspective camera from outliner with the middle mouse button, like that, and you go back to your perspective view. If you go look through selected, or the other way to do it would be go back here, panels, perspective, and choose your perspective camera. Okay, now let's move on and start actually creating something in our scene. In my opinion, Maya is quite intuitive software regarding hotkeys. It uses the same set of hotkeys, but it would give you different menus depending on what you do. For example, you open Maya first time and you have empty scene. If you click Shift and right mouse button, you'll see marking menu for creating geometry. Let me show it again and also explain a little bit how it actually works. Click and hold Shift, and then you click and hold right mouse button, and then you have your pop-up menu and you can choose cube. And then you need to release right mouse button, and ta-da! We created our first polygonal cube. When nothing is selected, Shift and right mouse button will give you option to create new geometry. But as soon as you select the cube or any other geometry you have, Shift and right mouse button will give you different tools and different options for your current cube, so you can't create a geometry this way anymore. This is very common for many hotkeys in Maya, depending on what is selected or not selected, or what tool you have. The same hotkeys would give you different menus or different options. Everything you create in Maya, whether it's polygon objects or NURBS or curves, usually would have object mode and component mode. For example, I have this cube in my scene. If I want to select it, I'll use the select tool and I click on it. I will select the whole cube. If I want to change something inside the cube, like for example move one vertex or the face, then I need to switch from object mode to component mode. To do that, all I need to do is click right mouse button, and I'll have a pop-up menu, marking menu, with where I can select different components. For example, I can go to edge mode. Now I can select this edge and move it somewhere. And then to go back to object mode, I will click right mouse button and switch to object mode. Something to be aware of is that you need to select your object first. If I click right mouse button without any selection, it will give me this little pop-up menu saying whether I want to select all or complete tool. Complete tool is not very useful because usually you just use enter to complete any tool or command. And select all, it's useful. You can also use Command Shift A. It also works in object mode. If I, for example, select vertices and click Command Shift A, I will select all the vertices. There is also a set of hotkeys in Maya to select different components. So right now I'm in object mode. If I click F9, I'll switch to vertices mode. Now I can select different vertices and move them around. If I go F10, now I can select edges. F11 would allow me to select faces, but unfortunately, since I'm using Mac, I can't really do it, and this is one of the reasons I would change this default hotkeys into my custom hotkeys. There's an interesting hotkey, it's F8. If I click it while I'm in the component mode, it will switch back to object mode, but if I click it again, you see I'll go back to component mode. You will switch it back to component mode and also would use the same ones that I used last. So for example, if the last one was faces, go to object mode and back to component mode. I will be able to select faces. So which components can we use? We have vertices, these little dots on the edges called vertices. We have edges, those are edges, and faces. We also have multi component selection option, which would allow us to select all the components at once. Sometimes this multi-component selection could be useful. For example, I want to move this face around this edge, in which case I need to select edge, and I need to select this face and also select this edge. And I can wedge face around the edge, and I can only do that if I can select both edge and face at the same time. And let's look at those two options in that menu. You can select vertex face. It won't allow you to select anything, but it will give you a very nice preview of your model. The reason it's useful because you can notice some issues. For example, if I select this edge, I will extrude it and accidentally forget about it. If I will try to smooth my model, I'll notice that something doesn't look right. So the way to find it would be to switch to vertex face mode, and you see now I can clearly see there is extra edge that is not supposed to be here. It could be very useful if you want to examine your model and find what possibly can cause errors when you try to smooth it, or maybe export it and for some reason you can't open it in another software. And the last one is UV and UV shell. UV shell and UV will be useful when we talk about texturing and how to unwrap your model. I will talk about it much later in this series, and we will use it when we learn how to unwrap our models. Before moving on to selection and move, scale, rotate tools, let me show you quickly something else that is also quite important to understand. In Maya, there is different ways to preview geometry, like the way I see everything right now, and using different smooth mesh preview settings. Let me show you. If I select this cube, click 2 on keyboard, and this one, and click 3 on my keyboard. Right now it's the same cube, but Maya gives me an option to preview that cube as if I would apply a smoothing to it, which could be very handy because very often you model something and then you will smooth it, but you can also keep your low poly model so you can go back and change anything. If I add edge to, for example, it will change the shape of my cube. And the reason is because now I have this extra edge, so the smoothing will go into that section and that section. That's why I preserve this shape a little bit better than the rest. Smooth mesh preview could be very useful because it's very easy to switch between a regular view or a smoothing view. And when you finish your modeling, you can always convert. You can also convert smooth mesh preview to polygons and get the exact same result. Also, in a smooth mesh preview, you can adjust the level of smoothness, or you can adjust how many divisions may you use to smooth your mesh. If you click page up and page down button, you can even go back to that previous view. Although I'm still using my hotkey 3, as you can see, it doesn't show me smoothing anymore because I have to change it to 0. And let's add smoothing again. I will add another level and another level and another level. And if you wonder where the smoothing options in Maya user interface, if you go to attribute editor in your cube shape node, there is a tab smooth mesh, and this is where you can also toggle it on and use different division levels here. And you can also use display subdivisions, which could be quite handy to see your smoothing with wireframe, so you maybe have better understanding how it's going to look when you apply smoothing. And finally, let's have a closer look at all the basic tools in Maya that you have on the left in your toolbox. So first, it's a select tool. When you click on your object, it will select it. When you click and drag somewhere outside of your objects, it'll create this rectangular selection lasso, and you can select multiple objects. If you hold Shift and select objects one by one, you can select multiple objects. And if you notice, you see slightly different colors on wireframe when you select objects. The green color will always show you the last selected object. This is how you can know which object you selected the last, and in some cases it might be useful when you need to align objects based on the last one and so on. So when you have a number of objects selected and you want to remove some objects from your selection, you can hold Control and click on objects you want to remove. The other way is to hold Control and click and drag and deselect a few objects at once. When you want to invert selection, for example, you have these two objects selected and you want to convert your selection, you can hold Shift and you'll convert your selection. If you want to add these two objects to your current selection, you can hold Control Shift and add them just like that. And the same goes to object mode. For example, you can select faces and you can add selection with by holding Shift. You can also convert selection. You can also add selection, or if you click and hold Control key, you will also remove selection. There's a useful hotkey to use. It's Tab. If you click and hold Tab, you will see this other way to select components, faces, vertices, or edges. But also, if you hold Tab and click on already selected faces, you'll start removing them from your selection, just like that. It's similar to a paint selection tool, which you'll find underneath. You can select more components and just add them to your current selection. If you start painting with this tool, just click and hold left mouse button, and if you hold Control, you will remove your components from current selection. Same goes with vertices. And if you want to adjust the size of your selection brush, you can hold B, and with left mouse button you can click and hold it to the left and to the right, and you will see you can change your brush size and be more precise. You probably noticed that when I select components, for example faces, I click and drag and select them like that. I will select them on both sides, and this is something you can adjust in settings. As I showed you before, every tool in Maya would have some sort of settings that you can use. All of them you can find in the tool settings here. If you check camera-based selection for this type of selection, like that, now you will be able to only select faces on one side. The other way to open the same settings, it's use Hotkey, Command Shift right mouse button. Go to Select and check camera based selection. And now we select all the faces from both sides again. The next selection tool is lasso tool. It does exactly the same with one difference. You can be more precise with the shape of your selection. The hotkey for our main selection tool is Q, and to switch to lasso, you can go to Tool Settings and choose Lasso. I think this is the easiest way to switch between those two. Now let's talk about Move, Scale and Rotate tools. The hotkeys to switch between Selection tool, which is Q, W will switch to Move, E, Rotate, and R, Scale. Move, Scale and Rotate. Let's start from Move. You can use Move tool also to select objects by just clicking on them with left mouse button. Move allows you to move your objects within 3D space. You can see different arrows have different color. This is to help you understand which axis it is which. If you look in the left bottom corner, you'll see that every color has different letter which represent different axes, X, Y, and Z. So the green one is Y, red one X, and the blue one Z. If you click and drag this little square icon in the middle, you'll move your object within your camera view. But you can also move your objects within a specific axis, for example, like that. Just click and hold any of the arrows. And you can also move your object within two axes at the same time. So to show you better, I had to create the walls and the floor. So if I want to move my object within this space, I'll hold and click this icon. See, I'm only moving it no matter what camera angle I'm using. I'm only moving it like that. If I want to move it within that space, it will be this red. The same goes for that one. There's a way to move it if I want to move it like that, but when I move my camera, this giant icon disappears, so I can't actually click on it anymore. The way I can do it by selecting it first, then I'll find the angle I need. For example, I want to use that angle. And then I'll use middle mouse button, click and hold. And since it was the last axis that was selected, I will move your object within that last selected axis. And the same goes with these arrows. If I select this arrow and anywhere outside of your model, I can click middle mouse button and I'll move it. It'll only move within that axis. Also, it will work the same way for the middle one, just like that. The little dot you can see here, it's your origin. This is the central point of your model. And these three arrows is your pivot. And you can also move your pivot and snap it to different surfaces or objects or grid or even curves and so on. I'll show it later on in this series when I'm going to talk about how to use different modeling tools and techniques. Something else you might find useful is that you can also change the size of these arrows by using plus and minus on your keyboard. You can use plus to enlarge them or minus to make them smaller. There's lots of additional settings for Move tool as well as a Rotate tool and Scale tool. If we go to Tool Settings, it's something I'm going to show you later when I will also explain how to move and rotate your pivot. But there is one thing I want to show you right now, just in case it happens. If you somehow switch axis orientation to normals, your pivot will disappear, and every time you select Move tool, you won't be able to do anything. And if something like that happens, one easy way to reset everything is click here, Reset tool, and it will reset your axis orientation back to the word. This is a good way to reset any tool that you're using. The next tool is Rotate tool. It's very similar. You have different axes. You can rotate your object, or you can rotate it without any restrictions. If you click anywhere in the middle, this light blue color represents a camera-based rotation, which means that it will just rotate it based on how you look at your object from the camera. Like if I move it like here, it will rotate it like that. You can also use plus and minus on your keyboard to change the size of rotation handles. And if you click and hold J key on your keyboard and then we'll try to rotate, you'll notice that it'll snap to 15 degree. This is default Maya settings that you can also change in tool settings. So you see there is a step snap. By default it's off, and you can temporarily activate it by holding G key on your keyboard. And if you click here and choose relative, for example, you'll be able to specify the angle that you're going to snap. For example, maybe I want to snap to 45 degree. And now if I'm going to rotate it, it will only rotate it with a 45 degree, as you can see. And if I click Reset tool, it will reset everything back to the way it was by default. And the Scale tool. Scale tool works exactly the same. You can scale your object along one axis. You can scale it from the middle, or you can also scale it within two axes at the same time. Probably easier to show it on the cube. Like, you can scale it like that, or like that, or within two axes at the same time. If I click and hold J and we'll try to scale it within one axis, you see, I will also have the same snapping head with rotation tool. If I go to tool settings, and also you can check the settings here in tool settings. If you want to have a larger snapping number, you can write it here. Okay, so now let me show you a few more settings that I think could be very useful just before ending this long video. Before you start working or creating anything, you should be aware that Maya has project window. This is like the full folder on your hard drive that has all different folders inside it just for different aspects of your scene. It could be renders, it could be textures, and so on. So the first thing you probably want to do when you just start working in Maya is go to File and click Project Window. So Project Window, right now it's showing me my custom default folder where I have all my Maya project. If I want to place my project inside new folder somewhere on my hard drive, I would click New. Here you can rename your project, and here you can pick location for your project. And you see there is different folders that Maya will create inside of your project folder. Then you need to click Accept. If I do that, it says that my project has already exists because I haven't actually changed anything. So I'll just click Cancel because I already have this location and for the current project. And then I go to File, and then you need to set your project. And you just choose the same new project folder, and I click Set. And now if I want to save my scene, I'll go File, Save Scene As. it will open the scenes folder in this new project folder that I just set up before. So now I can save my scenes in this folder. When you save file, you usually save a whole scene in a Maya format. I'll show you probably in the next video how to export different formats from Maya. But for now, it should be enough for you just to start working with Maya. The next very useful setting in Maya you can switch on. You know, when you do some client work or work for games, you always have a restriction. Like, for example, if you make prop, they say don't use more than 5,000 triangles and so on. To know how many triangles you have in your scene or in your selected object, you can show little windows that would show you this data inside your viewport. If you go to display, heads up display, and here you can see lots of different things you can have available to preview in your viewport. And you have this this area will show you how much polygons like faces or triangles you have. This will show you how many triangles or faces or edges, UVs, etc. You have in your whole scene. And this one will only refer to that object you currently select. If I select this one, you see the numbers in this column have changed, but these numbers are still the same. Something else that I think it's very useful to know at the beginning is that in Windows, setting preferences, you have plugin manager. Quite a few things in Maya would usually be a plugin, and every plugin can be loaded or auto-loaded. Auto-loaded would mean that when you close Maya and open it again, it will load this plugin by default. For example, if I select this model and I want to export it as an OBJ file, I go File, Export Selection, which is something I'm going to talk more in my next video. I want to export it as an OBJ file, but I don't see OBJ here. I only have FBX export and lots of other formats. It's because my OBJ export plugin is currently switched on. So what I can do, I can go to Windows, Settings Preferences, Plugin Manager, search here for OBJ, and yeah, I found it. It's OBJ Export. So I can click Load it and auto-load it. And close it. And now, Export Selection. And now I have this OBJ export, so I can export model in the OBJ format. And something to be aware of that sometimes a render in Maya, like Arnold render, stops working because it's also connected to one of the plugin. And this plugin called MTOA, which is, if you search for Arnold, you won't have any results here. So it means that sometimes names of plugins can be slightly different from the name of command or tool or anything in Maya that disappeared. The easiest way to find out the correct name would be, I guess, just Google it. Now let's quickly look at all the settings that, again, I think quite useful to switch on at the beginning. If you go to Windows, Settings Preferences, or Preferences, there is a lot of different settings. Let's go to the tabs that called Settings first. And this is where you can choose where you use centimeters, millimeters, or meters as your default units in Maya, because everything in Maya is in units, but in settings you can set what one Maya unit means. And also you can change up axis here, whether it's Y or Z. It depends on where you're going, what you're going to do with your model later on. Now let's go to Display tab and click on Polygons. This is a few very useful display settings you can change, or rather add. Here you can choose to highlight border edges and soft hard edges. Let me show you what I mean. If you look at my models, the edge has exactly the same thickness everywhere, and this model looks quite smooth. If I select it, my wireframe would be exactly the same. Actually, this one would be easier to see. So if I highlight it, wireframe has exactly the same thickness, and if I highlight this one, wireframe again has exactly the same thickness. So I'm going to change that into soft hard edges and border edges and click Save. And now I need to restart Maya to actually see the difference. And now when I open my previous scene, see what happens when I highlight this model. All the soft edges indicated with this slightly dotted line, and hard edges have solid line. And if I highlight this one, the border edge would look a little bit thicker than all the other hard edges. For example, if I select a few faces and I'm going to detach them, and now I can actually see that those are border edges or hard edges that shouldn't be here because all the other edges are smooth. This way it's just easier to notice if something doesn't look right on your model. And the last one, as I promised before, I'm going to show you where you can change your hotkeys. If I go to the same window and setting preferences, you can see here Hotkey editor. In Hotkey editor, you can search for menu items, for editors, and other items, or you can also search for commands or actual hotkeys. The first hotkey I want to change would be Isolate Select. By default it's Ctrl 1. If I search for Ctrl 1 hotkey, I'll quickly find it here. So I'm going to use this one. And as you notice, when I added a new hotkey, it would disappear because currently I have my search only for option 1 hotkeys, so it's not going to be option 1 anymore. I'll do the same for UV editor. And now I'm going to replace hotkeys for component selection. F8, Ctrl 4, F9, I'll have this one Ctrl 1, F10, I'll have this one Ctrl 2, F11, yeah, I can't even search for it. Okay, it took me a while to find it. So it's a menu item, select components, and here is my faces, which I'm going to change into Ctrl 3. And now I have to search for X-ray, and I found object X-ray. This is the one I'm looking for, and I will click and I will choose option X as my custom hotkey for object X-ray. If you remember before, I showed you that you can use this button to preview everything in a sort of X-ray view, half transparent. But now, if I select just few objects, I can use option X and I can view only my selected objects in X-ray view. Select them again, I can click option X again and so go back to normal view. Okay, so this should be enough for this video, and thank you so much for watching it. Give me a like or subscribe if you want to see more, and I'll see you in my next video.